Are you looking to increase your sales and boost your selling abilities to the max? Welcome to the Continuous Sales Improvement Podcast with best-selling author Eric Lofholm. Eric has trained over 10,000 students, and they have generated over $500 million in sales increases over the last 20 years. One thing he understands is that being a lifelong learner is key to your sales success. Every week, Eric Lofholm interviews elite sales and business professionals and discovers what helps make them the legends they are today.
Hi, this is Eric Lofholm. I want to welcome all of you to episode number 1 of the Continuous Sales Improvement Podcast. And I'm so excited to have my mentor and friend of many years, Tony Martinez, as our first guest. Tony, how are you doing today?
Doing fantastic, Eric. It's great to be here.
Awesome. So a little background about Tony. I met Tony back in 1992, and he was really instrumental at teaching me sales early on in my career, helping me with public speaking, and he's really had a profound impact on my life as a mentor and a friend. He's also a very successful business owner and a family man, a great husband, and is just an all-around great human being. And I was excited to have the opportunity to have Tony come on here and share some of his golden nuggets with us. So Tony, share with us a little bit of background about you so the listeners can get connected to you.
Yeah, born and raised here in Sacramento. And, as far as my business career, my real big break was, working for Dante Perano. And I've been in this industry now for since 1990. So this is my 31st year of being in this industry of public speaking, sales, marketing, promotion, mentoring, training, developing trainings, and everything to do with with information sales industry, real estate investing. So that's really been, prior to that, I didn't really have much of a background.
Yeah. And
never college.
Yep. Yeah. What would you say, Tony, is your best business increasing or sales increasing idea?
Well, there's, from a business perspective, one of the things, there's a lot of, most organizations, they're sales driven, they're sales and marketing driven. The revenue comes from sales. And what I've recognized is a lot of people just their sales are one-offs. And what I mean by that is, like, for example, I know of organizations right now and they do a lot of online marketing and they sell something online. They create a customer, sell that customer something, and that's about it. One of the greatest revenue driving, business building aspect of our business today has really revolved around how do you increase revenue without increasing expenses. And what that does is, and I'll give you an example. So if we have someone become a client and they invested $1,500 into our introductory training, when I've generated revenue, and then when I come back and I have something of value to offer that same client again, right? Then I've generated revenue without necessarily increasing expenses. They increase a little bit, but not very much. And if I can have something of value to bring to that client again that they have an interest in, then I can increase revenue again without increasing expenses. And then over a period of time, when you've built this database like we have right now, we have multiple campaigns that, let's say we have our California client base, and let's say there's 5,000 people in California who are our clients today. And I have a campaign that I run that runs to that group of clients, and it generates revenue, but it doesn't necessarily increase my expenses much. What I look to do is not only continue to generate revenue, but I look to build campaigns, marketing campaigns that are not one-offs. At this stage of my career, I refuse to do a one-off. So when I build a campaign, my plan is for that campaign to run at least 5 years before I have to touch it again. So all I'm really doing is building this campaign that generates revenue, and I'm just pouring customers. I'll pour my California customers in there, then I'll pour my Nevada customers in there, then I'll pour my Texas customers in there, my Florida customers. And so it's just one campaign generating revenue over time. And then what I can do is I can come back to California again and hit all the people who didn't buy the first time. So I'm still continuing to generate revenue from a campaign that I built one time. So those
That
are,
is an incredible concept, Tony. I think a lot of salespeople, business owners, entrepreneurs, they're doing one-offs. Like they have this certain
yeah,
problem and they look to solve the problem with a one-off marketing campaign. And
right.
to have that vision, that's a very, very unique insight.
Yeah,
Tony,
it's a game changer, really, if you think about it.
yeah, absolutely. And one thing that I know about you, Tony, that's I think very different than most entrepreneurs is the level of detail that you have when you put these sales and marketing campaigns together. Could you just briefly speak about how detailed you get when you're putting together your strategy?
Boy, so detailed that there isn't any one person in my organization that it does not drive nuts. um, it's it's painstaking. When you think about the fact that what a campaign really is, it's a way to influence other people to enroll for one of your programs. For us, anyways, one of our trainings, one of our events, one of our products or services. And what that means is the only way to influence someone online is through your copy, your words. If your campaign doesn't have words in it, then what's going to happen is you're not going to have a campaign that produces. And so understanding that every single word matters. Most people don't look at it that way. Most people, when it comes to sales, they're very lazy in language. They're not precise at all. And that will produce mediocre sales, but it'll never produce the highest top level sales possible. So I painstakingly will think through, for one email, it might take me one full day just to come up with the subject lines for that email. The subject lines can never be designed until the email is designed. And the subject line has, the bottom line is this: if you have an online campaign and it's email driven, if that, it could be the baddest, most converting campaign ever possible, but if the email doesn't get opened, it doesn't matter. So first and foremost for me, the single most important, once the campaign is developed, the single most important piece of that campaign has to be the subject line. And vast majority of people I know in business, I don't care how big or small the company is, they are very lazy in their subject lines. We are absolutely the opposite. We, for one email, I might have 10 or 11 different subject lines that I'm going to test all 11 of them. I'm going to test that subject line, and we'll test that subject line in a manner that's like, we'll test that subject, a series of subject lines in the first email. We'll test those same subject lines in the second email, see if it produces better in first position or second position. What I'm going to end up with over about 30 days of just testing subject lines, not only the best subject lines that produce, but where they produce best. Does it produce best in email number one, email number two, email number three, or email number four, or email number five? Just because it might produce extraordinary in email number one, but not very good in email number three, or it may not do very well in email number one, but it does extraordinary in email number three. So just that's just subject lines. The level of testing that we do on subject lines just to come up with the right formula for which subject line is first, second, third, fourth, and fifth, or possibly sixth, depending on how many emails are in the campaign. To write one email in my campaigns that I'm looking for, what I call infrastructure campaigns, where it's going to become part of our infrastructure that I don't have to touch in the future. Man, I've spent as much as a week or longer on one email, just, writing the email out, coming back, revisiting it, speaking it out loud to see how it sounds when I speak it out loud, moving this paragraph up and this paragraph down, adding graphics, taking out graphics, having some emails that when they click it, it goes to a video, having some emails that click and don't go to a video, long form, short form of the same version of emails. And then we'll come up, then same thing, we'll do the same thing. We'll put this email in as our first email. We'll put this email as our second email. Then we'll switch them around and see which produces best. And then we'll come up with a formula for the emails as well. This one's best in first position. This one's best second. This one's best third. This one's best fourth. This one's best fifth. This one's best sixth. And that's just the emails. Then when they click the emails, do we want it to go to a long, do we want it to go to a long form landing page or a short form landing page? And so we'll test both. So email number one will go to the long form and the short form, whichever produces best. That's where it goes to. That's it. Then we have a direct mail campaign that will coincide with the email campaign, and the direct mail campaign will test the direct mail where we have some information in the email or in the letter, send them to a landing page. And does it work better to the long form, to the short form, with the video, without the video? And we'll come up with a formula for a direct mail campaign. Which data, what's the best day to send it at? We'll test different days: 2 weeks before, 1 week before, 10 days before. As well, because sometimes if it's too far out, you get a bunch of registrations, but then you get too big of a drop off before they get there. So we just look to optimize show up rate as well. Then we'll combine that with a text message campaign layered in there as well. And the text message campaign, as it's obviously very short message, drives them to the landing page as well. And we've tested out, do we do that on day one? Do we do it on day two? Do we do it on day three? Do we do one text message on day one, one text message? We never do more than 3 text messages in a campaign because we don't want to blast, make that overused. All of our campaigns right now only use 2 text messages, one on day 2 and one on day 3 is what's been working best for us. What time to send out the text message? Early in the morning does not work. Better in the afternoon. We've tested 9 in the morning. We've tested 12 noon. We've tested 3 in the afternoon. 2 or 3 in the afternoon works best for us right now.
Let me jump in, Tony, for just a second. That's a brilliant answer. And I think for all of you listening, part of the idea behind the podcast is for me to bring guests on that have, incredible expertise, and they can share with you their blueprints. And Tony's conveying to you the level of detail and preparation that he has. I honestly don't know any other entrepreneur that prepares at his level in sales and marketing, and it's made a massive difference in his results. And I want you to just speak to what you just said, but from a different angle. Some of the people listening, maybe they're doing, email campaigns. They might be doing marketing text campaigns like what you're describing. A lot of people listening, they're delivering a sales presentation. So prior to you doing marketing for an entire company, if you go back to when you and I met, we were both selling for Dante Perano, but you had the same mindset around preparation for a sales presentation. So could you just speak to how much preparation, when you're putting together a 60 to 90 minute sales presentation, how much preparation do you do?
Gee, I mean, it depends. So is the presentation already created or not created yet?
Let's say somebody's watching, do it in this context. They sell insurance, they sell real estate, they have a repetitive presentation.
Correct.
That they're delivering, but I think most people just wing it.
They do.
So give them the insight. You probably have prepared as much or more than any sales professional in the world at mastering your presentation. So just give the people listening or watching this insight into what does mastery of preparation really look like from what you actually did?
Right. So if I was going to give a presentation on a Saturday, for example, let's say I gave a presentation on Saturday. I mean, the first thing I would do whenever I gave a presentation, if I was giving a presentation to a group, and maybe they're not giving a presentation to a group, but they're just giving a presentation to an individual, maybe that's a face-to-face presentation, or a presentation over Zoom or over the phone right now. First thing I would always do after a presentation is I would write down every single objection that person gave me, every single negative comment, every single objection that they had, I would write down, because I'm going to get those objections again in the future. And over a period of time, you get a core set of objections that you're going to get every single time. And you get to the point where there is not going to be a question that you could ask or objection that you come across that you have not heard before. Well, the best thing, most people just, even though they've heard that objection a million times, they've never really sat down and scripted out. They give an answer, but here's the better way to look at it. What's the best answer? right? What's the best answer? Not what is a good answer, not how do you respond, but have you really sat down with that objection and really thought through what is the most effective way to address that objection? And as you know, Eric, most of the time there isn't one effective way. It depends on who you're speaking to, right? And so if the person is a single mom and it's a money objection, it's a bigger difference. It's different than if it's a couple who has two kids in college and it's a money objection. So understanding how to respond to different people that you would be speaking to in those objections is an absolute. Again, there's a big difference between making sales and being a top producing salesperson. And so being prepared that way was always a big one for me. And if I gave a presentation live, and let's say there was 100 people in the room, and every single minute the last person walked out the door, I would sit down with maybe there's 3 or 4 staff members there, and I would ask them, what was every single objection that you received today? And I would make a list of all of them. And I did that for every single presentation until I had every objection that I was possibly going to get for that particular presentation. And then what I figured out is not just ways to overcome that objection when I was speaking to people face to face. The most effective way to overcome that objection is to answer it in the presentation to begin with, right? So I would have a case study, an actual real case study. I would comb through all of our success stories, and I would find case studies that would actually overcome the objection in the body of the presentation, so that when I finish my presentation, they could come up with that objection again. They could ask that question again. Now I have something to point to rather than just responding. So that was another thing as far as just, because that's
Let
what
me
we're
just jump
doing.
in for one moment.
Sure.
So as far as how much time, when you put together, say, the land talk for Dante's audience, how many hours would you say you spent crafting the script, practicing the script, over and over and over? Did you spend 10 hours to put that presentation together? Was it 50 hours? Was it 100 hours? Was it over 100 hours?
Over 100 hours. I mean, there's no question. It was over 100 hours to craft the presentation and get it to where I wanted it.
Okay,
Now,
so
once
I
I had
want you to think about this, okay? You're a real estate agent. How many hours have you spent crafting your presentation? A lot of people just wing it. They haven't spent any time. And here we have, one of the most prepared, if not the most prepared person at putting presentations together in Tony Martinez. And he's saying not what you should do, but what he actually did. He had a repetitive presentation. He was delivering it over and over and over again, and he spent over 100 hours doing it. Now, I'm not necessarily advising you go spend 100 hours, but how about spend 5, right? Spend 5 hours preparing or 10 hours on a presentation that you're going to deliver over and over and over again for the rest of your life. Now, Tony, we could go much deeper into presentation skills, but I want to get to a question about adversity. And I know that you have different times in your life that you've gone through challenge, setback, adversities. And I wanted to know, everyone watching right now, they've had their setbacks and maybe they feel like they're alone. Nobody's gone through what they've gone through.
Right.
Here you're massively successful entrepreneur and business owner, family man, but tell us about a time when you had a setback and what did you learn from it?
Well, my biggest setback was when NASI, our first company that went out of business. I mean, there was no bigger setback in my life, financially, especially, than that business failure. I went from a company that was generating $15 million a year in business to going bankrupt, filing for bankruptcy. I went from driving a $150,000 911 twin turbo Porsche to having no car at all, to not having a bank account, no credit cards, phone turned off. Anything that could be turned on was turned off. Any accounts that could be open were closed. I slept on my cousin's floor for 8 months, borrowed his car to try to get back up on my feet. There was no, prior to that and after that, there's been no bigger business failure, no bigger failure, impacting failure in my life. And I don't know that I've ever been through anything so tough as what I went through there. It wasn't just losing every nickel I had. It was going to less than zero, being $2.8 million in debt and having to file for personal bankruptcy as well as corporate bankruptcy. It was a challenge, super challenging time for sure.
Wow. So you went from 15 million in revenue down to zero, went from a elite, Porsche to no car at all, lost everything. What's I'm sure there's hundreds of lessons from that, but what's one thing you learned from that incredibly challenging experience?
It was a business failure. I wasn't a failure. Is one big thing that you have to distinguish. Because your business fails doesn't mean you're a failure. I was broke, but I wasn't broken as a human being. I knew for a fact that I didn't unlearn everything that got me there. I didn't unlearn public speaking. I didn't unlearn sales. I didn't unlearn marketing. I didn't unlearn all the skill sets that I had up until that point. I didn't unlearn any of those. And so keeping those intact, I understood that I couldn't stay in that position forever. There was and quite honestly, my perspective shifted pretty quickly. And I thought, wow, this is gonna be a badass story to tell in the future. I really, really believed. I couldn't wait to tell the story. I didn't know what the story was going to be. All I knew, the part of the story was going to be, I was broke. I lost I had everything, lost everything. And then I'm back again. I didn't know what back again looked like. Yeah. I didn't know what back again was going to be, but I knew I wanted to tell that story at some point in the future.
Yeah. Give me the nugget again that you said about, you said, was it your business failed, but you were not a failure?
Correct.
Guys,
yeah, there's two. There's two.
That's a huge nugget. If you've gone through a divorce and you're feeling like a failure, or you're feeling less than, or maybe you went through a bankruptcy. I've gone through a bankruptcy too. Tony and I both have. If you've lost the business, if you maybe made an investment and you lost your investment, or your credit score tanked, that's a great golden nugget that Tony just shared, and hopefully that uplifted at least one of you that is listening. Tony, let's go to the next question here. In 5 minutes or less, what was a success you've had in your life, and maybe a couple of the golden nuggets that you got out of, like something you've done in your life that was successful, and you can give us a couple of pointers, kind of like what you're talking about with the sales presentation. The golden nugget was preparation. What's something else that you've had a success on in your life that you could share with us?
Well, I think really a big one right now is because of the circumstance we're in with this pandemic and everything that's been going on over the past year.
Yeah.
Instantly, we went from, the revenue that we generated was 7 figures a month to zero revenue, and not able to generate revenue because we were 100% revenue driven by our live events. So everything from our seminars to our trainings to our one-on-one consultations to everything we did, every revenue generating source was shut down. So we had no choice but to either do one of two things, and it was questionable in the beginning because no one knew what the future looked like, whether we would still be in business. So one of the main things that I had to do at that point is I really had to take inventory of what my skill sets are. What am I good at? What are my expertise, and how am I going to use them moving forward? And then the second thing I did is I made a list of the sharpest people I knew in business. And that list consisted of a gentleman by the name of Tony Jerry, who's a mentor of mine, business coach, CEO coach, one of the top CEO coaches in the country. Included another gentleman, Joseph Janicek, who owns one of the largest, most successful private wealth management firms in the country. And I hand selected people to meet with over the phone and via Zoom and strategize with immediately to see what they were doing, what they suggested we should do. And so I really leaned on some really, really sharp people as well. And I just was constantly strategizing and looking at what the other thing was, I had to look at what are my resources? What are my people resources? What are my human resources, I should say? What are my financial resources? Who are my vendors? Who are my colleagues? Who are my business associates? And what resources do I have? And I just kind of put all that together to come up with a plan on what's next. But I will tell you, man, when that pandemic hit, I met with my staff, and just like when I failed in business all those years ago, I had an ultimate resolve, and that resolve was this: you put me in a position where, out of my control, right, out of anything that I could do, you forced that upon me, and because of that, I'm going to come back stronger. I don't care what it takes, um, but I am not going to just get through. I'm not just going to survive this pandemic. I'm going to come out bigger, better, stronger than we've ever been. And that was a meeting and a promise that I made to my staff, and that's exactly what we did.
Wow. So you went from 7 figures in monthly revenue down to 0.
0. Yeah.
And there's a great golden nugget that Tony shared. I hope you guys heard it. And that was reaching out to advisors, right? When we have a problem, how good, all of you listening or watching, how good are you at reaching out to advisors, people that are experts in an area of life, and reaching out to them and saying, hey, I really need your help, and doing exactly what Tony did. And Tony's an incredibly smart individual, yet he saw value in reaching out to advisors to help put a plan together. And then you pivoted, and now, you guys you pivoted to the online strategy, and things are going great. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct. We're actually, right now, percentage-wise, we net more than we did prior to the pandemic.
Wow. There's very few businesses that can say that, except for maybe some businesses were enhanced by the pandemic, right? Because we
were not enhanced because of the pandemic.
But our industries, very few people in our industry are doing better than they were. That's incredible. Couple more questions, Tony. The next one here. What is one way you've used repetition to improve or master a skill?
Well, that's, let's go back to public speaking. We were having that conversation, and, like I said, if I was going to give a presentation on a Saturday, I practiced all week long. The difference between the way I practice and the way other people think they're practicing for a presentation, like right now, people sit in front of their PowerPoint presentation, they're working on their slides and they're working on this and adjusting that. I practice my full presentation out loud. So when I say out loud, exactly how you practice is how you play. So I didn't sit there and just go talk under my breath, sitting at my desk. I stood up as if I was on a stage, and I practiced out loud with the same voice inflection, with the same force in my voice. And I did it all week long. So I had that particular presentation back then, I had it broken down into modules. So I could think through the presentation. If I wanted to work on just the close, right? And that was module 11, then I could actually sit in my car and actually out loud and just repeat module 11 over and over and over again. I could be in the shower and think through my presentation and think of module 4, which was a case study. And I could recite that module over and over and over and over and over again. Then I could just, when I had time, just sit in my apartment and recite the entire thing start to finish over and over and over again. And back then, I was very self-conscious about, I was a top producing public speaker, but I didn't want to lose that position. So for a lot of years, even when I was delivering 2-hour and 20-minute presentations, the morning before I spoke, I would get up in my hotel room and I would deliver that presentation out loud, the entire presentation all the way through one time before I would get up on stage that day. So, if I delivered that presentation, 30 times during the week, then come Saturday, it's just 31.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. For all of you listening, if you take what Tony did, right, he's not just giving advice. This is what he actually did. And you work on your presentation over and over and over. I mean, just listening to Tony right now is like motivating me to want to even work on my presentation even more. That's a big money making idea. And that's the whole purpose of this podcast, is so you can learn from experts like Tony Martinez, pick up the blueprints that he's sharing with us today so you can have a better life. Tony, a couple last questions here. How do you like to learn? Do you read? Do you work with consultants? Do you attend seminars? Do you do Audible? What's the way that you like to learn?
All of those. So, Eric, as you know, I am a lifelong learner. So I'm always reading a book. I'm always listening to a book on audio right now. Prior to the pandemic, I was in Strategic Coach, which is a high-level mastermind group. It's a $25,000 a year mastermind group. I'm in a mastermind group like that every single year. Tony Giri, as I mentioned, was one of my advisors. He's a personal friend and an advisor to me right now. I don't listen to podcasts. I have a whole list of podcasts that I really respect the people who have the podcast, but I just can't seem to get into podcasts, quite honestly. I don't like watching videos online. I don't watch YouTube, presentations or anything like that. I don't know why. It just does not. It's just not the way I like to do it. Like Dante's a huge video guy, man. He sends me videos almost every single day from YouTube, and I never even click on the link, quite honestly, because it's just not my way. It's not my way of doing it. So reading physical books. I like reading physical books because that gives me the opportunity to highlight everything that I like, to make notes, and then I take those books and I give them to a transcriber, and they transcribe it into a set of notes for me. So I've done that with hundreds of books over the years. So those are my favorite ways to learn.
Awesome. I think what Tony said is just key. It's along the lines of what this podcast is about, being a lifelong learner. And we never stop learning. And it's worked for Tony. Fantastic. Yep. So Tony, a couple of just rapid fire questions here. Is there a book right now that you're reading, or somebody that you follow, or somebody you're learning from right now in your life?
Yeah. So, there's a few books that I would recommend. One of them I read last year, but I think it's just such an extraordinary book. Everyone should read it. And it's called Atomic Habits. And I don't know if you've mentioned that or know that book, but I've read so much on habit formation. And it is by far the best book I've ever read on. I've actually read it twice and listened to it twice. I've read it twice physically and listened to it twice. It's that good. So that's a great book. I read a biography recently. It's called How You Play the Game, How We Play the Game, something like that. It's I read that, or I listened to that on audio last year sometime. But it's the CEO of Dick's Sporting Goods, and I really like listening to success stories, how other people did it. And one of the things that typically is common denominator in all of those success stories is there's a resolve that these guys and these people have, that failure is not an option for them. So I thought that was a great book. And then the last one, the one I'm reading right now or listening to right now, is called Sea Stories by Admiral McCracken. He's the highest ranking admiral ever that was a Navy SEAL. And he wrote a book called Make Your Bed that was really popular, New York Times bestseller. But just a lot of great lessons in those books as well.
Awesome. What's one goal that you have right now?
Boy, I just want to, I want to take where we're at in this particular business right now, and I want to build from here. I have so many projects and so many goals on paper right now. What this pandemic has given me an opportunity to do is spend a lot of time strategizing again, meeting with some very sharp people and designing out a whole new future. And so, I'd really like to just build upon where we're at right now and just continue to create this a juggernaut of an online marketing business, driving the vast majority of all of our business online, and then pivot that or transition that into some live training events that I have a list of things that I would do. One of them's a project that I have with Dante, and another one's a project that I have with Tony Giri right now.
Fantastic. Now, these last couple questions are more just so we can get to know you a little bit better. Growing up, did you play a musical instrument?
Nope.
All right. Favorite sports team?
Basketball has always been the Lakers, and football has always been San Diego Chargers since I was a kid. Those have always been my two favorite sports teams. All
right. And singer or musical group that you like?
Boy, so many. I'm a huge Santana fan. I grew up listening to Santana. I grew up with an uncle and a cousin who played in a band. They played all salsa type style music, and they used to practice at our house. And 9 out of 10 songs that they knew and played was Santana, and I'm just a huge fan of his. It's amazing he puts out so much great music still this many years later. He's So he's one of them for sure. I love an artist, a female artist by the name of Erica Badu. She's just, again, I've had a crush on her for probably close to 30 years now, and her music. Yeah.
Awesome. And what was her name again?
Erica Badu, Badu.
Awesome. I want to check that out.
Nice.
Tony, is there anything you would like to offer the people watching the podcast or the listeners? Is there any next step you'd like to recommend for them as far as your business?
As far as my business, not necessarily, man. My best recommendations is for people to recognize their value. I think we all have to take a look at what are our skill sets, what expertise do we have, what resources do we have, what human resources do we have, what financial resources do we have, who do we know, and really, when you can quantify all of that, it'll give you a lot more confidence on taking better actions, understanding that none of us escapes. If you really go for it, if you really want to achieve dreams, none of us is going to escape setbacks. None of us are going to escape hard work, and none of us are going to escape temporary failures. How we respond to those, that's and one of the things, Eric, and you and I have talked about this before. One of the things that I could always bank on, in competition, in our businesses, and what we do for a living, is I could always bank on the person next to me's laziness, their unwillingness to do what I was willing to do, and that always gave me a ton of confidence, man. That knowing that for a fact, without exception, I don't give a shit who you are. Oh, sorry, man. I don't give a crap who you are. No one's going to outwork me. No one's going to practice their presentation more times than I am. No one's going to read more books. No one's going to put as much time as I put into an email. No one's going to put as much time as I put into scripting out a promotional video. They're not going to outwork me. And because of that, I'm always going to surpass them. They're just, compounded over time. They're not going to outwork me. And so the other thing is, at the point of frustration, 9 out of 10 people are going to quit. 9 out of 10 people are going to start making excuses. So at the point of frustration, when I reach a point of frustration, I go, oh, that's that point where most people quit. I'm not quitting. That's the point where people start to make excuses. I'm not making excuses. I'm going to keep going.
Fantastic. Well, I want to acknowledge you, Tony, for being a great interview today and for being a mentor and a friend. And beyond that, I know that you show up powerfully for a lot of people in your life, and you've dedicated your life to making a difference in the lives of others. For those of you that are watching, I'd like you to acknowledge yourself for listening to this podcast. And the way I want you to do it, take your right hand if you're right-handed, your left hand if you're left-handed. I want you to pat yourself on the back and tell yourself, great job for listening to this podcast. I want you to encourage you to be your number one cheerleader. I also want to encourage you, if you really resonated with this podcast, or anytime you find a piece of content that really resonates with you, I want you to watch or listen to it 7 times. So if you were connecting with what Tony and I were sharing, watch or listen to this 7 times. It's kind of an unusual request. The reason, though, I would advise you to do that is you can put these powerful ideas in your subconscious mind through the principle of auto-suggestion. This is episode 1, and there'll be many, many future episodes, and you can learn all about the different ways that you can watch or listen to the podcast, and also about the future episodes by going to continuousssalesimprovement.com. When you go there, just hit the podcast button, and you can find all the information about the podcast. I would love it if you would share this podcast with other people that you have in your network that can benefit from positive, successful ideas like this. Tony, thank you again for being a great guest. And this is our first episode. I'm so glad that it was you. It was an amazing interview, Tony.
Awesome, Eric. Thank you for that, man. And dude, you're doing such great work out there, man. And I'm so glad that we remain friends over all these years, and super honored to be first on your podcast, man.
Awesome. Thanks, Tony.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for listening. If you like this episode, make sure and subscribe to get notified of new episodes each week. And check out our other great episodes by going to continuousssalesimprovement.com. That's continuousssalesimprovement.com. And while you're there, pick up chapter 1 totally free of my new book, Continuous Sales Improvement. Just opt in when you go to the website. Until next time, keep on improving. I'll see you in the next episode.